as I approached her and she realized she'd be assisting me and not one of the smaller passengers. She started to walk away with the wheelchair while making comments about my size. Even when I told her I really needed the chair and needed her to let me sit down in it, she blatantly ignored me and kept walking.
Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today we're going to be talking about a video that was posted by JBay. Now, if you don't remember who JBay is, we talked about JBay in the past. They were the person that created the whole kind of campaign about airline travel and being plus size, being bigger. And they kind of had a whole thing saying that airlines need to do better and like the seats need to be bigger and there needs to be more accommodation for bigger people. We talked about that. And then we also talked about, they were talking about how like hotels need to change their elevators and a lot of stuff that I just felt like I can understand the sentiment, but the ideas that were put forth were maybe not the best. And so today we're going to be talking about this TikTok that was uploaded. It was also uploaded on a lot of other places, but they go on to say, wasn't sure when I'd share this, but staying silent isn't an option anymore. If you face something similar, you're not alone. Discrimination is real, and I don't want anybody else to ever feel something or experience something like this. I don't plan on stopping the fight for change in the travel industry and beyond. Everybody deserves respect and dignity, regardless of size, ability, or any other factor. Let's stand together to ensure equality for all. And in this TikTok, she kind of goes over an experience that she claims that she had at an airport. So we'll go ahead and just like let it play.
My ordeal at SeaTac Airport will shock you. This experience I'm about to share with you is yet another example of why employee sensitivity training, a demand outlined in the plus-size travel petition, is desperately needed. I'm a plus-size wheel.
So the plus-size petition that she's talking about is kind of the thing that she put together after the video went viral where she was talking about this stuff. And so again, a lot of this stuff I'm very wary of believing that it actually happened the way that she claims that it did. But we'll go into that more later.
Wheelchair user, and on a recent flight to the SeaTac Airport, I requested wheelchair assistance, as I always do. When it came time for me to deplane, I saw the employee who would be assisting me with my wheelchair waiting for me in the entry of the jet bridge. As I approached her and she realized she'd be assisting me and not one of the smaller passengers, she started to walk away with the wheelchair while making comments about my size. Even when I told her I really needed the chair and needed her to let me sit down in it, she blatantly ignored me and kept walking.
So that's where, like, I think if this actually happened exactly how she claimed it to happen, obviously that's not cool, and doing that is not the best thing. I just really, really struggle with believing that this actually happened. If I'm being completely honest, that might sound a little mean or anything like that, but I don't mean it in that way. It's just too perfect that the person whose whole content is about this type of stuff has this crazy thing happen to them, to where they can make content about it, right? Especially when the first one went viral and kind of made her career, for lack of a better term. It is very interesting to me that that would happen again and make a post about it. But again, that's just the theory.
I was then forced to walk up one of the longest jet bridges I've encountered, and she didn't stop. By the time she let me reach the wheelchair and sit down, my lips were white. My oxygen levels had dropped and I almost fainted. This was my first time flying without oxygen. This woman.
So I think the craziest thing to me is that to be in that position where just walking down a jet bridge, which it might be the longest one you've ever seen, but none of those are insanely long, is causing you to a point where your lips are turning white and you can barely breathe. I don't understand how you don't see that happening to you and think to yourself, I really need to make a change because this is a life that I don't want to live. I'm no longer living, I'm just existing, right? Is this a life that truly you feel is fulfilling for you, right? I just really struggle with how you can have that experience and instead of walking away with like a sobering reminder of, man, I really need to make some changes, because the thing that's so important is that you have to understand, like, there is stuff that you can do, anyone in this position, to make your life exponentially better and be able to experience so many more things. But instead, it's everyone else's fault other than my own, and everyone else needs to, basically like fix everything for me, and I don't need to make any sort of change. It's mind-blowing to me. It really is mind-blowing to me.
Just assumed I could walk and would rather me do that. Instead of her having to push someone my size up the jet bridge, all the other attendants wheeled their passengers up the jet bridge, but my needs were disregarded. This is discrimination. Nobody should be treated this way. Share your story at change.org/size travel.
So again, and then plugging the the petition or whatever. Again, it just feels a little too good to be true, in my opinion. But with that being said, there was also, she also posted this, like, well, if we actually look at the comments on TikTok, a lot of them, there's a lot of comments talking about put it on IG Reels. That's kind of a meme. I don't fully understand it. If you get it, let me know. I'm too old to get it. But it's a lot of people like, bless your heart. You know, I'm sorry no one should have to go through this. I'm sorry this happened to you. A lot of like really just comments that are just fully in support. But it's interesting because if we go to this same reel, it's basically the same reel. It's like cut down a little bit because I think you can only post a minute on shorts on YouTube. If we read these top comments, they have a different perspective. So this is the top comment on this short. I come here to with a different opinion. I'm assuming is what they meant there. I'm just about your size, and too many times I've had people really struggle to get me up the jetway. It is not easy to push someone our size on a straight way, let alone slightly uphill. We need to consider this as well. They are putting themselves in danger of physically hurting themselves. Now, I always tell them to just meet me at the exit of the jetway where I get in. Works better for both of us. You also should have been wearing your oxygen, as that's dangerous not to. Thirdly, the airport staff should know if it is a wide or extra wide wheelchair, that means the person will be heavy. They should give those passengers to pushers who are bigger and have more strength. I agree with that. One time, it was a very older, very thin man trying to push me through the airport and couldn't even do it, and I'm 412 pounds. He had to call another guy to help push me, and it took both of them, and they were both out of breath and huffing and puffing. So personally, I don't believe the lady was wrong or discriminating at all. She knew her physical limits of what she could do and what she could not do for her safety as well as her own. I pushed my mom for years when she was only 250 pounds, and let me tell you, it was not easy. We sometimes need to put ourselves in their position. I think that's really important. That's something that I feel like J-Bay does not do, is puts herself in other people's position. It's just everyone is wrong and they need to, basically change everything for me. Would we be able to push someone our size up the jetway? I know that I could not. And I'm not trying to be mean or argue, just pointing out facts. I had an aunt being pushed, and she was around 350 pounds by a person that was struggling while trying to push her out of the airplane door onto a shuttle bus. They couldn't even get her over the door frame and kept trying to maneuver her, and she eventually went flying out of the chair onto the sidewalk and got injured. So now I understand that I don't want to get hurt either, right? And then the other most liked comment: riding on a plane as an obese passenger, my sister had the aisle seat while I had the window. We prayed that nobody would take the center seat. Someone even bigger than us claimed the seat, and I was horrified. It's humbling to admit this, but I realized that then and there that I didn't want others dreading that I would sit beside them. I've lost 40 pounds so far, eating less and moving more. I've moved from obese to overweight, and I'm overjoyed with the progress. Be the change you want. Right? So it's like these comments are people that understand their size is going to cause problems, but they don't blame everyone else. It's like they take some sort of personal responsibility. And I think that that's where people like J-Bay struggle with, is that it's like there's no level of personal responsibility. And I think a big part of that is because they believe that you can't lose weight. It's impossible, right? They fully have bought into, 95 to 99% of people can't keep weight off. And so when you start to believe that, you start to kind of talk about your problems like there is no solution. There's nothing you can do to help remedy the situation. And I feel like another really good example of that is this TikTok. We're not going to go over the TikTok. She's just lip singing to a song, so we'd get demonetized. But I think what she writes here in the caption is really interesting. So, in a world where thinness is glorified and fatness is demonized, speaking out becomes an act of defiance. When thin individuals voice discomfort over small airplane seats or societal standards, they're met with empathy and action. But when I, a plus-size person, dare to raise similar concerns, the response is vastly different. I would say that what most people are talking about versus what you're talking about are definitely different. And again, you have to understand that there definitely is a level of personal responsibility here. Like, just because you see that there's a level of personal personal responsibility, that doesn't completely negate the fact that there are societal issues that might cause someone to be maybe more overweight than someone else that might be in a different position. But just acting like there's nothing to do, like personal responsibility or like things that you can do yourself, have no, like there's no part of that that can go into being the size that J-Bay might be or anyone might be, I think is just living in La La Land. And then, so the response is vastly different. Instead of addressing the systemic issues, I'm met with hostility, blame for my size, and told to fix myself if I want to change. It's a glaring example of unequal treatment faced by fat people in society. I think like the thing that bothers me the most is that a lot of times people in J-Bay's position will compare the situation she's in as the same as basically someone that's like in a wheelchair that, you know, maybe had an accident or they were born with whatever, right? There's nothing they can do to get out of the wheelchair. You know, they're disabled or they have a disability. And I really just hate that kind of thinking, because there are so many things that J-Bay can do to mitigate the issues that her size are causing her. And it just feels like there's just no want to do that. It's like she wants to live in a body that is basically like falling apart, even though she has the means to make a change. And I don't know, when people act like there's nothing they can do, I don't know what to say to that, because I can understand like talking about the issues, you know, of being like treated poorly in hospitals or going to the doctor's office and like, you know, that fat discrimination or whatever, like that's important stuff. But to not even acknowledge like, hey, if you're 400, 500 pounds, like there are some things that you can change that can help mitigate those health issues that you might have that have nothing to do with society, but that you might have, that you might be struggling with. Like if you're not able to walk down a jetway and the main reason is your size, to not at least acknowledge that, hey, maybe losing weight would help that, I don't understand it. But the conversation shouldn't revolve around individual choices or bodies. It's about challenging the ingrained biases and structures that perpetuate discrimination, yet instead of acknowledging these disparities, the burden is unfairly placed onto us to conform. It's not that you have to conform to a specific thing. It's just that like if your body is at a point where you cannot walk down a jetway, maybe you should look at, hey, there's some things that I need to change here. It's an injustice that I refuse to accept silently. Last year's viral petition keeps bringing up how viral it was. Interesting. Was just the beginning of my fight for equal treatment and representation. Until society recognizes the inherent value and rights of all bodies, regardless of size, I won't back down. I won't let the discomfort of others silence me or hinder progress. Yes, I'll continue to provoke challenge and demand change. If that makes the world uncomfortable, so be it. Because at the end of the day, it isn't just about me. It's about ensuring fairness and dignity for all. So that's what she has to say there. I think I've kind of made it clear how I feel about the whole situation, my thoughts. I'm genuinely curious what other people think. Let me know down in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.